when preparing for an audition is to memorize everything as fast as possible and then spend as much time as possible just refining. There are two different ways that you can practice for different extremes. One end of the spectrum for the anxiety is to do very intense cardio for like 1 minute and then play through the packet. That will help prepare you for the nerves that come with auditioning. Another thing to do is play through the packet without warming up as soon as you wake up, when you are lethargic and are unable to think, etc. This will also prepare you for like, what if you don't sleep the night before, which has happened to me at some auditions and whatnot. If either of those happens, whether you get performance related anxiety or you are tired, you can go like, I've been preparing for this for months, I'm good to go, I can still play through everything and not have to like be lost in your head freaking out about it, etc. If you can, practice on the drums that you're going to audition on, because the surface might be a different kind of tension and rebound than your practice pad. So I highly recommend doing that, and if possible, wearing them. Another thing I recommend for auditions is to actually get lessons from the instructors, if possible, plural, and then also do jam sessions with people who have been on the line or are currently on the line. So that way you can learn specifically what they are going to be looking for the audition itself, because it's one thing to learn the packet, but it's another thing to learn the packet with the proper technique that they will be looking for. Everyone's going to look for something different. Even if you have like the perfect technique for your drumline, if you're auditioning for a different one, they might be looking for something a little bit different. A lot of younger players will actually spend the bulk of their time practicing just on the weekends, but it's actually better to spread out your practice sessions over multiple different days so you have time to sleep on it, where you can process it in your brain more. So instead of doing like an hour on Saturday and an hour on Sunday, if you actually spend like 15 minutes every single day spread out and just make those very focused sessions, you can actually get more done and make more progress than you would with, let's just like do a bunch on the weekend and then take a break where you like slowly get worse, and then you do a bunch on the weekend where you get better and then you slowly get worse. But if instead you spend 15 minutes of like intentional time every single day, you'll get a little bit better. Granted, if you make that an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours every day practicing, then you'll get significantly better than you would if you're only doing 15 minutes. But the 15 minutes is better than doing like a bunch just on a couple of days. One thing to know about auditions, whether it's for like drumline or for getting into school of music, is they sometimes don't have positions available. Whether it's like, hey, we've got 10 snares who are all returning, odds are those 10 are going to get the spot over somebody who is new, who is kind of untested and maybe less experienced. Now, when it comes to auditioning for like a school of music, sometimes they don't have scholarships available for people to actually like get a performance scholarship. Even if you're the best player there, they might not have enough scholarships available for you to actually get one. And same thing for actually getting into the school of music. If you're auditioning, I do recommend auditioning for multiple different colleges, so that way you can kind of increase those odds of finding a place that does have availability, whether it's for getting into the school or even for getting a scholarship. I was literally the worst percussionist my freshman year, and then my sophomore year, I was first chair of every ensemble. It just took practice. That's it. So as somebody who's got a PhD, award-winning researcher, blah, 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 I've done research on skill acquisition, which is like the fancy word for it. Talent is overrated. The first 50 hours of practice, the people who so-called have talent might have an advantage. After 50 hours, it's indistinguishable. It's all about how much time you put into it and the quality of that time that you put into it. So if you're just like sitting there and just like, I'm going to play everything as fast as possible, that's a very different kind of practice than what I'm doing right here, which is I'm playing this at 40 and 41 and trying to refine my technique. So if you really want to get a scholarship, having taught students who have gotten to scholarships to like Berkeley, to UNT, Arizona State, etc., it's all about the practice that you put into it. So those students practice several hours a day, every day. The students who did not get those scholarships or who did not make those drum lines, they may put in like an hour a day. Find the ways to practice efficiently, effectively over an extended period of time. That's really all it takes. The best way to practice is to be absurdly intentional with your practice routine. Slower is better because then you can refine your technique and whatnot, as opposed to just like constantly playing it at show tempo. It also kind of exposes more of the inconsistencies in the airs whenever you practice things slow. At the end of your practice sessions, like the last 5 to 10% of your time, chop out on something. Use that as a way to collect data for what you will then work on the next day. It can be very helpful to isolate your hands, but I have seen many students, and probably even most students, have more issues when they put the hands together than when they're doing it apart. So they might be able to play, and it's great. Maybe even as double stops, and that's also great. But then as soon as they put their flam accents together and play it, it's like... So the issue is not with the isolated hand itself, but when they are combining the hands together. One way to actually do it in context is to just play absurdly slow. Like set your metronome at like 40 beats a minute. Work on flam accents like this. And then maybe try it with grid variations extremely slow at like 40, go up one click at a time, etc. There's like 800 on my website, all for free. That's what I would recommend more, is actually working on it in context and slower than just isolating out what each of your hands is doing. You're asking me this question, great. Now ask 10 other people that are also drummers of different kinds or percussionists of different kinds to get some different responses. Like a rudimental drummer is going to give you different advice than a drum set player versus a marimba player versus like a concert snare, etc. All of those are different perspectives that can kind of inform what you end up doing, which is what I highly recommend doing. In general, I've had the privilege of being able to study with a variety of people in person, and then to just learn from a ton of people through like YouTube and whatnot. And that has all kind of informed how I play. Playing slow with a fast technique. If you're playing stick control, play with this left hand, the single note, slowly moving up, as opposed to stopping and staying down here. Because when you're playing stick control fast, you don't want it to be like that. You want, as opposed to stopping down here. Also, when you're going slow, the accents and taps should be absurdly light. So you're pulling back for the height. You let the weight of gravity and your stick in your hand get the sound out of it, but you are not actually forcing it in. I'm not going, because again, you want to think of playing with a fast technique, but you happen to be doing it absurdly slow. So it's going to be nice and light, but when you get to faster speeds, as you increase the velocity of this, it's going to keep the volume while staying nice and relaxed. This is advanced stick control with filler. So it starts off with your normal stick control. And then the fill-in pattern, you're playing the exact same thing. So you're playing right, right, left, right, 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 left, right, 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 left. But now you're filling it in. The second line of each one of these phrases is a triplet version of this. It goes triplet, 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 triplet. And then the same idea in terms of the triplet sticking. So Swiss, triplet, triplet, right, right, left, right, right, left. And then you just fill that in. There's normal stick control with filler. This one doesn't have the triple feel for it. And then there's also stick control, just like the normal version. This is like a 4-2-1 version of stick control. Has 0 filler in here. And then there's also a variation of stick control. So you can play it as a timing exercise as written, or just play normal stick control while only hearing the skeletons, so the hand-to-hand transitions. That way you can really listen in for your interior notes to see if they sound even and whatnot. Chug with tag. You can play this as slow as 20 beats a minute or as fast as 160 beats a minute using the play along. You can find literally over 1,000 free play alongs linked at the top of the screen, or on the home tab of my YouTube, where we've got everything neatly organized into playlists in the drumming content.